were 11 friends, young, bright, and full of life. Students who believed one last summer adventure would be the memory of a lifetime. The names are still whispered around Cherokee Ridge. Ethan, Lila, Brandon, Chloe, Marcus, Tyler, Ava, Jordan, Nadia, Caleb, and Mia. They walked into the Tennessee forest on August 14th, 1998, and none of them ever walked back out. At first, it was just a weekend trip, a few tents, a handheld camera, and the kind of laughter that only comes when the future feels wide open. But by nightfall, something shifted. Rain rolled over the mountains. The forest fell silent, unnaturally silent, and deep inside the ridge, they found an entrance they weren't supposed to find. A hollow in the earth that breathed like a living thing. That was the last anyone ever saw of them. Days later, rescuers discovered their vans parked neatly beside the trailhead. Inside, maps marked routes that didn't exist on official records. When the search teams entered the ridge, they heard faint tapping from below the ground, like someone was trying to answer them. But no one ever found the source. Only a single word carved into a cave wall. Helpa. And 21 years later, a hiker found their old camcorder wedged between the rocks, still recording. What was buried beneath Cherokee Ridge? Was it a rescue gone wrong? Or a cover-up that ran far deeper than anyone imagined? Tonight, we reopen the file that investigators still refuse to close. Operation Ridge Echo. If you love unraveling hidden truths, twisted investigations, and stories that blur the line between the explainable and the impossible, hit like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who believes every mystery leaves a trace. Because what you're about to hear might change how you see the forest forever. Stay with me till the end. Take it. The last summer, 11 friends, all students from Knoxville University, ready to mark the end of college with one last adventure. They'd spent months planning the route, a weekend expedition through the Cherokee National Forest, a place they thought was beautiful, untamed, and forgotten by time. On the morning of August 14th, 1998, 2 cars left campus before dawn. Cameras packed, gear loaded, music blasting. Ethan Rowe, the self-proclaimed leader, filmed everything. He wanted to make a short travel documentary, a memory reel before real life began. You can hear him laughing on tape as he says, 3 days in the wild, no phones, no professors, no problems, but none of them could. Via known those would be his last recorded words. The group included people from every corner of campus life. Lila Summers, a journalism major who believed in chasing stories no one else would. Brandon Ortiz, a geology student obsessed with cave formations. Chloe Reed, the shy one who followed her friends, more out of loyalty than curiosity. Marcus Hall and Tyler Nugent, inseparable, best friends since freshman year. Ava Brooks, who never went anywhere without her camera. Jordan Ellis, a musician. Nadia Price, the planner. Caleb Hunt, the skeptic. And Mia Turner, the quiet observer who documented everything on a small notebook she carried everywhere. The forest greeted them with calm air and sunlight filtering through the oaks. Birds, insects, the sound of running water, the kind of wilderness that feels untouched by the noise of modern life. The trail they followed led to a ridge that locals called Echo Hollow, a name that sounded poetic. Until later, they set up their first camp near a creek. The camcorder footage shows smiles, roasted marshmallows, songs echoing through the trees. But when the camera pans toward the ridge, you can see something, a dark opening carved into the rock face. Brandon notices it first. He zooms in and jokes. Looks like nature's front door. Everyone laughs. No one takes it seriously. But the way Ethan stares at that entrance, it's different. It's the kind of look detectives later paused on when reviewing the tape. Locals who lived near the trail later told investigators they'd warned the group that a storm was coming, that the ridge floods fast, that there are caverns beneath the mountain. Some natural, some not. But college kids never believe in danger until it's too late. By evening, dark clouds gathered above the trees. The barometer on Marcus's wristwatch dropped suddenly, and within minutes, thunder rolled through the hollow. On the footage, you can hear Ava saying, "Let's go inside the cave till it passes." What? Nowhere's at the ridge had dozens of collapsed tunnels from the old mining days, structures buried and sealed decades earlier. The rain hit like a wall. Investigators later described the storm as one of the heaviest that summer. 70-mile winds, sudden flash floods, lightning striking across the valley. The group took shelter inside the opening. The camcorder captured water rushing down the entrance, mud sliding beneath their feet, and Brandon shouting, "It's deeper than we thought." The footage ends abruptly as the camera drops to the ground, pointed at a flickering flashlight. When the weather cleared the next morning, the ridge looked normal again. Quiet, almost peaceful. But the friends were gone. No tents, no supplies, no sign they'd ever left the forest floor. 2 days later, a park ranger found their cars parked neatly near the trailhead, keys still inside, maps folded on the dashboard. Investigators noticed something strange. One of the maps had a section marked in red ink, Ridge Sector D. Unlisted, there was no such designation in the park records. When the families arrived, the search began immediately. Volunteers, police, Forest Service, even divers joined when evidence suggested underground water channels. Detectives on scene said it was eerie. Radios lost signal in certain areas. Compasses spun without reason. Dogs trained to track human scent refused to move past the ridgeline. They'd whine and circle back toward the vehicles, as if something invisible stood between them and the forests beyond. The local sheriff, Daniel Cross, led the initial investigation. A decorated officer known for his methodical approach, Cross treated it like any other missing persons case, until it started defying logic. His early report described displacement of topsoil consistent with ground collapse, and unusual low-frequency vibrations recorded during aerial surveillance. None of that matched natural causes. As media attention grew, reporters began comparing the case to real incidents. The lost hikers of Smoky Mountains in the 60s, and even the Thailand soccer team that vanished underground decades later. The difference, those kids were found. These 11 were not. Every search turned up fragments. A boot near the creek, a half-buried sleeping bag miles from camp, and then the discovery that changed everything. A single piece of videotape recovered from mud near the ridge, partially destroyed by water. Forensics confirmed it belonged to Ethan's high-8 camcorder. The frame they managed to restore showed the group inside the cave, their faces lit by a single lantern. Behind them, shadows moved against the rock, but none of them noticed. That single image became the anchor of Operation Ridge Echo, the largest coordinated search and investigation in the state's history. The FBI joined 6 days later, bringing ground-penetrating radar and acoustic sensors. The ridge was mapped, scanned, and analyzed. The data showed cavities, vast underground hollows extending deeper than expected. Some resembled natural formations. Others appeared geometric, metallic, man-made. Detective Cross wrote in his 2001 update, "Every time we think we're close, the ridge shifts. It's like the mountain doesn't want them found, and that's where the mystery begins to fracture into something larger than a simple disappearance. Because hidden beneath those hills might not just be a cave, but a secret sealed long before 11 friends ever stepped foot inside. Their story, their laughter, their curiosity, and their final moments would echo across 25 years of unanswered questions. And as you'll soon see, this isn't just a missing persons case. It's the beginning of a buried investigation that someone, somewhere, never wanted opened again." 3 weeks after the 11 friends vanished, the Cherokee Ridge case had already shifted from a search mission to an investigation. The forest, once filled with volunteers and flashing lights, now stood silent again. But for Detective Daniel Cross, silence was never peace. It was pressure. Pressure to explain what didn't make sense. Pressure from families, media, and federal officials who wanted answers yesterday. Cross started where all cases begin: evidence. The recovered tape. TID. Vehicles. The ridge. Maps. Each item told a story, but none fit together. Forensics confirmed the tape had been submerged in muddy water for days. The timestamp showed August 15th. Las 3:07 m. The night of the storm. The footage was short, grainy, and eerie. The 11 friends huddled close as rainwater dripped down stone walls. Someone whispered, "Did you hear that?" Then a low hum filled the background. Steady, mechanical, not thunder. A shadow crossed the frame, and the camera cut out. Cross sent the audio to the state lab in Nashville. Their report returned with something chilling. The frequency of that hum matched no known natural sound. It was too consistent, too rhythmic, almost engineered. The analyst wrote, "Pattern resembles subsonic vibration produced by industrial turbines or underground machinery, but there was no record of such equipment in that area. Not then. Not ever." The next lead came from a retired forest ranger, Harold Briggs, who who'd worked the ridge during the 1970s. He claimed the site had once been part of a Cold War military survey, possibly testing underground communication lines. No official documents supported it, but Briggs described restricted zones, concrete bunkers sealed and buried after a classified incident. Cross requested access to old Army Corps of Engineers records. Weeks later, most of those files arrived heavily redacted, pages blacked out, coordinates missing, signatures erased. Whatever had existed under Cherokee Ridge, someone wanted it forgotten. Meanwhile, the families pushed for federal intervention. The media turned the 11 into symbols. The vanished generation. Talk shows speculated everything from cult activity to government cover-ups. Some said the students stumbled upon something they weren't supposed to find. Others believed a storm caused a landslide that buried them alive. But Cross kept circling back to the data. The strange frequency, the red-marked maps, and that one word carved into the cave wall. Help Dot in early September. A team of divers explored the nearby water channels that ran beneath the ridge. Their sonar detected hollow spaces too deep for standard entry. They lowered a submersible camera. The feed showed dark tunnels, twisted rock, and then a flash of something metallic. The image lasted only seconds before the signal cut off completely. When they retrieved the camera, its outer shell was dented inward, as if hit by intense pressure at T's point. The FBI formed a specialized task force. Their reports refer to the case as Cherokee 11. They brought in ground-penetrating radar, drones, and geological experts. What they discovered deepened the mystery. Beneath the ridge, 200 feet underground, lay a circular structure, symmetrical, reinforced with steel, spanning 30 meters wide. It wasn't natural, but according to historical archives, no construction permit, military base or mining project had ever existed there. Cross and the task force requested permission to drill. The approval took months, tangled in jurisdiction and federal secrecy. But in October, drilling began. They hit something solid after just 8 feet metallic, dense, impossible to cut through with standard equipment. A dull vibration traveled up the drill line, forcing the team to stop. Instruments went haywire. Compasses spun again. The hum returned, louder this time, audible to everyone standing near the ridge. That night, local residents called 911 reporting strange lights over the tree-line, white orbs hovering, flickering, then disappearing. Some described hearing voices echoing across the valley, like cries trapped in the wind. The next morning, the drilling equipment had shut itself down, power systems fused, data drives corrupted. Only one log entry remained, timestamped 14 a.m. Signal received repeating pattern, Morse code. By winter, Cherokee Ridge was closed to the public. Military vehicles were seen entering the perimeter, though no agency claimed responsibility. Cross was ordered to cease independent operations. His access was revoked, his files sealed, but he didn't stop. He'd copied portions of the evidence, photos, transcripts, and the full tape fragment. He believed someone inside the system wanted this story buried, just like those 11 students. In his final private journal entry, dated December 19th, 1998, Cross wrote, "They didn't vanish. They were taken, or trapped. The ridge isn't just earth and stone. It's a doorway, and whatever's behind it still hums." 25 years later, that journal resurfaced through a Freedom of Information request. It reignited the case. Investigators and journalists revisited the ridge, equipped with technology far beyond what existed in the 90s. Yet, even now, the readings remain unstable. No one has found human remains, no signs of habitation, no proof of survival, only the persistent sound recorded beneath the soil. The same frequency captured in 1998. And so, the question lingers. What lies beneath Cherokee Ridge? A forgotten government experiment, a geological anomaly, or something neither science nor reason can yet define? The hum continues. The ridge remains closed, and the names of those 11 friends still echo through Tenness's darkest mystery, a case that refuses to rest, and a truth that refuses to stay buried. By the spring of 1999, Cherokee Ridge had become more than an unsolved disappearance. It was a national obsession. Every talk show, every newspaper, every conspiracy forum wanted a piece of it. Yet, behind the noise, one thing stood painfully clear. 11 young lives were still missing, and the official story was crumbling. Detective Daniel Cross, now working off the record, had built his own timeline, frame by frame, log by log. He traced the students' last known movements from Knoxville to the ridge, Gas station receipts confirmed they stopped at a rural convenience store 2 hours before the storm. Security footage showed them laughing. Bulging snacks, one of them. Ethan Morales even joking about ghost hunting. Cross found the clerk who worked that night. She said something strange. One of the students, a girl with a red jacket, had asked if there was still a radio tower up there. The clerk said yes, but that tower had been decommissioned decades. Earlier, Cross drove up to that same tower site in late April. It stood deep within the forest, rusted but still upright, fenced off with a sign that read property of U.S. Geological Survey. But when he ran the serial number, it didn't match any registered equipment. Beneath the tower, he found remnants of fresh soil movement, as if someone had recently dug and refilled. He returned the next night with ground sensors. What he picked up wasn't normal. A low pulse, repeating every 32 seconds, almost like sonar. Days later, Cross sent his data to an independent physicist from Vanderbilt University. Her analysis was stunning. The pulse wasn't random. It matched a signal pattern used in old military transponders from the 1950s, particularly in classified underground communication networks. In short, something under Cherokee Ridge was transmitting again after decades of silence. Meanwhile, the families had grown desperate. They'd hired private investigators, divers, even local psychics. One mother, Mrs. Lawson, received an unmarked envelope at her home. Inside was a photo, a blurred image of 11 figures standing in a tunnel. Faces unrecognizable, illuminated by a dim blue light. The postmark was from Chattanooga, but there were no fingerprints, no DNA, nothing traceable. Cross never confirmed the photo's authenticity, but he noted something chilling. The timestamp in the bottom corner read April 17th, 1999, to 14 a.m., the same time the drill and logs recorded the Morse signal. By early summer, the FBI released a quiet statement. No new evidence supports continued investigation at Cherokee Ridge. The media moved on, but Cross didn't. He believed the case had been deliberately suppressed. When he requested classified files on the site's historical projects, he was denied under national security grounds. The denial letter was signed by a division that technically didn't exist. Department of Strategic Atmospheric Operations. In Julie, Cross met with an informant known only as Mason, a retired technician who'd worked at Oak Ridge National Laboratory in the 80s. Mason claimed the ridge wasn't just a geological site, it was a failsafe. During the Cold War, engineers built deep vaults for experimental resonance technology, using sound waves to detect subterranean activity, earthquakes, nuclear testing, even troop movement. But something went wrong during a test run. The equipment started generating its own frequencies, beyond human control. They sealed it off, shut it down, and erased the project. According to Mason, when the 11 students camped there, the system reactivated, triggered by the storm's electrical interference. The frequency they heard wasn't random noise. It was an active signal, looping endlessly, waiting for a response. Cross couldn't verify Mason's claims, but he recorded the entire conversation. 2 weeks later, Mason was found dead in his home, officially ruled a heart attack. The recording disappeared from police custody. That fall, Cross visited the ridge one last time. He walked through the tree line where the vehicles had been discovered, feeling the earth vibrate beneath his boots. He found what looked like a new fracture in the ground, narrow but deep, like the earth had been split and sealed again. As he knelt down, he heard that same hum. Not faint, but alive. He wrote one final entry in his private log. The sound isn't just echoing, it's responding, it's aware. In the years that followed, Cherokee Ridge was fenced off entirely. New no-fly zones appeared on aviation maps, citing unstable geological activity. Journalists who tried to trespass reported being followed. Their footage, one claimed her car's electronics failed near the site, her compass spinning wildly, the radio tuning itself to a low-frequency buzz. And then, in 2019, 20 years after the disappearance, seismic sensors picked up tremors near the ridge. Nothing massive, just enough to trigger curiosity. But what the data revealed was unnerving. The frequency pattern embedded in the vibrations perfectly matched the 1998 tape, a repeating pulse. Mensaje. The word return. For many, it confirmed what Cross had believed. All along, the case wasn't over. The ridge wasn't dormant. Whatever began that August night in 1998 had only paused, waiting as the sun sets over those Tennessee hills. The hum still resonates deep below the soil, a mechanical heartbeat that refuses to stop. 11 names still missing. 11 families still waiting. And a question that will never fade. Did they stumble into something human or something built to watch us, even now? By 2023, the Cherokee Ridge case had become a legend, whispered more than discussed. A ghost story wrapped in classified files and unmarked graves. Yet, the hum never stopped. Locals still heard it on windless nights, that steady drone drifting through the valley like a machine breathing beneath the earth. Then came the spark that brought it all back to life. A new discovery. A research team from the University of Tennessee, funded to study subterranean acoustics, set up seismic recorders along the ridge. Their equipment malfunctioned within hours. The data they did recover showed patterns not seen since 1998. Synchronized pulses, rhythmic, like coded messages. When the team tried to triangulate the source, every sensor pointed toward a single location, the abandoned radio tower that had rusted in silence for 2 decades. That night, a graduate student named Liam Carter returned alone to recalibrate the sensors. His colleagues later found his Jeep still running, headlights pointed toward the forest. His camera was recovered a mile from the ridge, cracked, waterlogged, but still intact. The footage, when restored, showed Liam speaking into the lens. It's active. The ground's moving. There's light coming from under the tower. Then a sound, sharp, metallic, followed by static. And finally a voice whispering through the noise. 11. Within days. Federal agents arrived again, sealing the site under the guise of environmental protection. But this time the public wasn't silent. The footage leaked, spreading online faster than officials could contain it. Millions watched. Theories exploded. Aliens, portals, Cold War tech gone wrong. Some dismissed it as another internet myth. Others saw it as proof that the 11 had never left the ridge at all. Proof that the 11 had never left the ridge at all. Detective Cross's old journals resurfaced through journalists, revealing the extent of his notes mentioned Project Echo Deep, a classified military program designed to test acoustic mapping deep within the Appalachian bedrock. Documents suggested it had gone beyond mapping, experimenting with resonance, frequencies to open temporal fractures in solid matter. The project was abandoned after a catastrophic failure in 1962. No survivors, no record. But what if the ridge had been the testing ground? And what if it never truly shut down? Investigators revisiting the case used modern ground-penetrating LiDAR. What they found defied logic. A circular cavity, perfectly symmetrical, stretching hundreds of feet underground. Inside, faint heat signatures pulsed, rhythmic as a heartbeat. The hum wasn't just a sound, it was energy vibrating through rock, metal, and time itself. Meanwhile, families of the missing students began receiving strange mail again. Not photos this time, but recordings. Unmarked flash drives containing only audio. Faint, breathing, whispers, and in one file, the unmistakable voice of one of the vanished mom. We're still here. Voice analysis confirmed a 97% match with Ethan Morales, missing since 1998. The timestamp on the metadata read June 2nd, 2023. The FBI denied all involvement, labeling the audio a digital fabrication. But privately, agents reopened the Cherokee Ridge file, now listed under Anomalous Activity National Security Level 4. Satellites were repositioned, airspace locked down. The hum grew louder, now detectable as far as 20 miles away. Birds stopped nesting near the ridge. Compases span. Cell service failed. By October, scientists stationed nearby recorded spikes in electromagnetic radiation directly above the site, a vertical column invisible to the eye, but captured by infrared lenses. It rose straight from the ridge into the atmosphere. When overlaid with old data, it matched the coordinates of the original 1998 storm system, as if the atmosphere itself was reacting. Again, then came the night of November 12th. Locals described it as the loudest the hum had ever been, deep enough to shake windows, low enough to make bones ache. One witness said the ridge lit up like dawn, blue light bursting through cracks in the soil. Security drones lost contact. Every sensor shut down at 11:14 p.m. For 3 minutes, the entire valley went dark. When power returned, the light was gone, and so was the tower. In the aftermath, the site showed signs of collapse. The metallic structure that once defied drilling had fractured cleanly, like glass. Inside the crevasse, officials found something buried. 11 rusted nameplates, each engraved with one of the missing students' names. No bodies, No bones, just the plates and a single camera. The footage recovered from that camera was brief. 11 figures, standing in a circular chamber, surrounded by glowing walls, their faces expressionless, eyes fixed on the lens. Behind them, the same hum, louder, pulsing, almost intelligent. Then, as the light flared, one of them stepped forward, whispering a final phrase before the feed cut out. It's not the past, it's waiting. The video was never released publicly. Officials called it a hoax, but deep in the records of the reopened Cherokee file, a classified notation remains. Phenomenon persists. Source unknown. Maintain containment. Today, the ridge is off limits, buried under government control. Locals say the sound still echoes after midnight, faint, rhythmic, counting 11 beats before fading away. Scientists call it geological feedback. Detectives call it unresolved. But those who've stood close enough swear it's something else entirely. A signal from beneath, a memory repeating itself, and perhaps a warning from those who vanished into the hum. Because maybe they never disappeared at all. Maybe they crossed something we were never meant to find, and whatever answered them hasn't stopped listening. In 2019, 21 years after the 11 friends vanished, Cherokee Ridge drew attention once again. This time, not because of storm clouds or search parties, but because of what a hiker discovered wedged between the rocks near Echo Hollow Creek. It was a mud-caked high-8 camcorder, its battery long dead, the casing cracked, but somehow preserved. The device would become the most important witness the case had ever seen. Forensic restoration teams worked for months, delicately cleaning the lens and repairing the internal tape mechanism. Every frame they salvaged revealed fragments of the last night inside the cave. Laughter turning to unease, shadows moving unnaturally, water dripping steadily from jagged rock formations. Ethan Rowe's voice cuts through the footage. Something's here. I don't know what, but it's listening. The statement, simple on the surface, would haunt investigators for years. The first sequence shows the friends huddled around a flickering lantern, their faces pale from fatigue and fear. Chloe Reed whispers to Lila Summers, asking if they should leave, but the path behind them is blocked by fallen rock and rushing water. Brendan Ortiz attempts to peer deeper into the tunnel, shining his flashlight, only to stumble backward when a sudden metallic clanging echoes from the depths. No one else seems to understand the source. Not yet. Audio analysis reveals more than what the human ear could detect. Subsonic vibrations recorded beneath the natural ambiance match frequencies never before associated with ordinary caves. One expert later noted, it's as if the ridge itself was communicating, responding to something inside. The camcorder picks up shadows and movement that don't align with natural sources, subtle shifts in light, reflections, bouncing at impossible angles, hints of figures just beyond the friend's perception. Investigators found the tape simultaneously terrifying and crucial. For the first time, they had real-time evidence of the group's last conscious moments. No supernatural claims, no hearsay, just raw footage. Every detail was meticulously studied. Mud splatter patterns, water flow angles, flashlight beam arcs. Each element gave clues about their position in the cave system, their movements, and the tunnel's hidden structures. The camcorder also documented personal reactions, moments that would later humanize the case for audiences worldwide. Nadia Price sketches symboled in her notebook by lantern light, seemingly instinctive, unprompted. Caleb Hunt murmurs. The echoes. They sound like someone's whispering our names. This prompted the FBI to consider psychological responses to confined spaces, stress, and environmental anomalies as potential factors in their disappearance. One frame, partially recovered, shows Ava Brooks adjusting the camcorder on a rock ledge, attempting to stabilize it while pointing toward a corner of the cavern. The shadows in that corner move independently, faster than human speed, bending around corners, almost observing. Analysts noted that the angle of the lens could not create such distortion naturally. Ground-penetrating radar scans in the same area later confirmed hollow cavities, though nothing human-sized could fit undetected. Detective Cross, reviewing the footage, commented privately in his notes, every element on this tape aligns with our previous observations. Vibrate echoes, thermal readings. But now, we have confirmation. They were not alone in that ridge. This insight sparked a renewed task force effort, combining historical data, thermal imagery, seismic patterns, and the tape's frames. Together, they pieced a partial reconstruction of the cave's interior, aligning visual evidence with previous sonic anomalies. The tape also captured subtle environmental changes that had been overlooked for decades. Water levels rising faster than expected, minor collapses, forming and resealing tunnels, and lights reflecting off surfaces that didn't exist on official maps. These details suggested either a highly dynamic cave system or the presence of something deliberately designed to manipulate its internal structure. Perhaps the most haunting part of the footage came near the end. The group, exhausted, appears to find a secondary chamber. Leela whispers, "Do you think anyone will find us?" There is a pause, a sound of shallow breathing. Then a single low whisper from the darkness. Someone's out there. The camcorder falls, and the last frames are chaotic, showing flashes of movement and distorted shadows. The audio persists for several seconds longer, an unsettling, rhythmic pulse, consistent with all previous observations of Cherokee ridges, anomalies. Restoration experts confirmed the camcorder's original tape quality had degraded severely, yet it preserved enough to corroborate multiple investigative lines. Thermal readings from the video matched later scans from LiDAR and infrared surveys. Frequency analysis tied the hum in the tape directly to subsonic signals. Detected in 1998 and again in 2023. It was undeniable. The ridge was active. By the time the footage was analyzed publicly, the narrative had shifted. No longer were the missing students a story of youth and tragedy alone. They had become the center of a mystery that spanned decades, connecting natural anomalies, hidden Cold War era structures, and unexplained signals, still detectable today. Each frame of the tape served as a puzzle piece, hinting at something much larger than human error or misfortune. Even 25 years later, the camcorder's recovered footage remains classified in full. Though partial frames circulate among investigative journalists and experts agree on one thing. It is the most authentic evidence ever captured of the Cherokee Ridge phenomenon. It confirmed the presence of environmental and possibly artificial factors that influenced the disappearance, transforming a decades-old cold case into an active, unresolved investigation with implications that reach far beyond Tennessee. For families, for investigators, and for those who study the unexplained, the tape is both a window and a warning. A glimpse of the last known moments of 11 friends and the incomprehensible forces that may have claimed them. It also raises the ultimate question. What else is waiting beneath Cherokee Ridge, silently observing, recording, and responding, even now? By 2024, Cherokee Ridge had become more than a cold case. It had transformed into a symbol of unsolved mysteries that defied conventional investigation. With every technological leap, from LiDAR mapping to seismic monitoring, new layers of the ridge revealed themselves, yet the 11 friends remained missing, their fate suspended between legend and reality. Federal authorities quietly reopened portions of the original files under the codename Operation Ridge Echo. Detectives, geologists, and acoustic engineers worked together, trying to reconstruct the environment from which the students vanished. Their preliminary reports indicated unusual subterranean formations, consistent with previously undocumented mining activity, deep chambers, circular metallic reinforcements, and tunnels that seemed intentionally labyrinthine. Each corridor and cavity was mapped against the recovered camcorder footage, thermal readings, and seismic scans. The correlation was uncanny. Locations captured in the footage aligned almost perfectly with underground anomalies. One of the breakthrough moments came when infrared drones captured heat signatures that fluctuated rhythmically, pulsing in the same frequency recorded in 1998 and again in 2019. Experts noted these were not biological readings alone. They exhibited mechanical consistency, almost like an engineered system designed to maintain life or simulate it. These signals appeared to originate from a central chamber, hidden deep beneath the ridge, accessible only through narrow, uncharted passages. The investigation team discovered remnants of human presence beyond what the camcorder had recorded. Small personal items were buried in sediment, a notebook with pages partially legible, a pair of glasses etched with mud, and fragments of a jacket. DNA analysis confirmed the remains belonged to the original 11 friends. Yet, remarkably, there were no skeletal remains, no sign of trauma, and no evidence of foul play as traditionally defined. The conclusion baffled even the most seasoned forensic specialists. It was as if the ridge itself had claimed them. Detective Daniel Cross, now retired but consulted as a senior advisor, emphasized a recurring observation. Every time we believe we understand the ridge, it reconfigures itself. Paths shift, tunnels collapse or reappear. Equipment fails. Something active is controlling the environment. His statement resonated through the task force meetings. Several younger investigators described experiencing disorientation and dizziness when entering mapped zones, consistent with both physical stress and potentially electromagnetic interference. Psychological profiles of the missing students, reconstructed through diaries and recovered footage, suggested the group remained cohesive until the very end. Fear is evident in their voices, yet coordinated movements show calm decision-making under stress. Lila Summer's notes indicated attempts to trace airflow and water paths. Marcus Hall and Tyler Nugan tried to block passages for safety, and Ava Brooks continued documenting everything, the last frame capturing a shadow moving independently of light sources. Investigators interpreted these behaviors as indicative of rational responses to extraordinary circumstances. By mid-2024, advanced subsonic detectors were deployed across the ridge. They confirmed the persistence of the characteristic hum, a low-frequency, repeating pulse, remarkably consistent across decades. Attempts to amplify or isolate it caused interference with all electronic devices in proximity. Drones lost control, cameras froze, sensors corrupted. The phenomenon was no longer merely acoustic. It appeared to interact with electromagnetic fields, suggesting an intelligent or artificially sustained system. One particularly chilling discovery came from a recovered flash drive found in Mason's former Oak Ridge laboratory. The files contained schematics for an underground resonance chamber, annotated with unusual notes referencing both Cold War military experiments and the Cherokee Ridge anomaly. The diagrams depicted mechanisms designed to emit subsonic frequencies, capable of interacting with organic matter and potentially altering perception. Some experts speculated these experiments, inadvertently, created a localized environment capable of entrapping human consciousness or life energy. Families of the missing students were informed in a limited briefing. Emotional responses were mixed. Hope, despair, anger, and disbelief. Some interpreted the findings as proof that the 11 friends might still exist in some form within the ridge, while others feared the explanations bordered on the paranormal. Across Tennessee, local folklore merged with scientific inquiry, creating a hybrid narrative that blurred fact and legend. Despite extensive monitoring, no clear pathway for human retrieval was identified. Geotechnical studies indicated extreme instability within key tunnels, with sudden shifts and collapses, potentially triggered by external activity. The ridge remained an active, dynamic environment, resistant to conventional mapping or intrusion. This led investigators to consider the possibility of a adaptive subterranean system, one capable of maintaining internal conditions indefinitely, separate from the surface world. By late 2024, Operation Ridge Echo published a confidential interim report, summarizing progress, evidence of continued anomalies, recovery of personal artifacts, confirmation of historic activity beneath the ridge, and repeated detection of subsonic signals correlating to previous recordings. The report concluded with a chilling recommendation. Access should remain restricted, and further investigation should only proceed with specialized technology designed to withstand environmental and electromagnetic hazards. As the ridge stood silent again, the hum persisted, imperceptible to most, yet unmistakable to those who listened closely. 11 names remained etched in the annals of unresolved mysteries, their presence inferred through frequency, shadow, and artifact, rather than physical remains. For scientists, detectives, and families alike, Cherokee Ridge had become more than a location. It was a living, enigmatic system. Its secret was incomplete, tantalizing, and unresolved, ensuring that the story of the 11 friends would continue to captivate, haunt, and challenge understanding for decades to come. By early 2025, the Cherokee Ridge investigation had entered a new phase, blending decades of cold case methodology with cutting-edge technology. Operation Ridge Echo now included a multidisciplinary team: geologists, acoustic engineers, forensic psychologists, and intelligence analysts. Each member brought expertise designed to confront what previous investigators could only observe, but never fully explain. The ridge had become a test of patience, intellect, and resolve. The team began by cross-referencing all historical data. Camcorder footage, recovered artifacts, seismic scans, and Mason's Oak Ridge patterns emerged, indicating the ridge itself was not static. Thermal anomalies fluctuated unpredictably, Ground vibrations correlated with the subsonic hum recorded intermittently since 1998. The echoes were not random. They formed consistent pulses, suggestive of communication or adaptive response, almost as if the ridge were aware of observation. Detective Cross, called back as a consultant, emphasized the importance of the recovered high-8 tape. Every frame aligns with environmental anomalies we now confirm exist, he stated. It's a blueprint. The tape shows movement, reaction, and perhaps even intention within the cave system. It's the only thing we have that bridges human perception with measurable phenomena. One breakthrough occurred when the team deployed LiDAR-equipped drones into previously inaccessible tunnels. The scanners revealed structural formations far larger than expected. Circular chambers reinforced with metal and stone, connecting multiple vertical shafts. These chambers aligned with Mason's schematics, suggesting the ridge had been modified deliberately, perhaps decades before the students' arrival. Some corridors were blocked by collapses or sediment shifts, indicating natural processes, yet certain tunnels exhibited signs of precise engineering, straight walls, uniform angles, and metal supports embedded deep in rock. Acoustic engineers focused on the persistent hum. Advanced analysis demonstrated it at multiple layers: a subsonic baseline, secondary harmonic frequencies, and intermittent high-frequency spikes. Cross-disciplinary consensus suggested that these frequencies could affect organic tissue perception, psychological response, and even behavior patterns. In essence, anyone within the ridge could experience disorientation, fear, or hallucination, all induced by the environment itself. Psychological profiles of the missing 11 were reconstructed using recovered personal items, notes, and camcorder footage. Analysts noted patterns of coordinated decision problem-solving and attempts to maintain group cohesion under extreme stress. Evidence indicated that the students recognized anomalies and tried to document them, yet the adaptive environment limited their options. Shadows, reflections, and sounds captured on the tape appeared to influence movement patterns and decisions, suggesting an interaction between the ridge and the occupants. During exploratory dives in nearby underground water channels, sonar detected hollow chambers consistent with structural tunnels. Noted in historical data, thermal imaging confirmed irregular heat signatures at multiple points, sometimes suggesting human presence long after the disappearance. These anomalies were aligned with recovered artifacts, including clothing fragments and personal belongings, reinforcing the hypothesis that the ridge retained traces of the students in specific locations. Secondary discovery involved electromagnetic fluctuations directly above Ridge Sector D, the area originally marked on the students' maps. Sensors detected energy spikes, synchronized with seismic and acoustic anomalies when cross-referenced with Mason schematics. The sector appeared to function as a central hub, a convergence point for energy, frequency, and structural complexity. Experts theorized that the hub could sustain isolated environmental conditions, explaining why conventional search efforts had failed for decades. Family engagement remained a critical component. Investigators provided briefings, carefully balancing transparency with operational security. Families received copies of thermal maps, photographs of recovered items, and summaries of frequency analysis. The psychological impact was profound. While closure remained elusive, the confirmation of environmental anomalies, recovered artifacts, and verified signals offered tangible evidence that the 11 friends had left a trace, one that persisted decades later. In parallel, intelligence analysts investigated potential historical government involvement. Declassified Cold War era files suggested Cherokee Ridge had been surveyed for experimental acoustic and subterranean research. While no explicit connection to the 1998 disappearance was documented, the overlapping anomalies, schematics, and human interaction with the site suggested a historical context, influencing current phenomena. By mid-2020, Operation Ridge Echo concluded its interim report. Cherokee Ridge remained active, demonstrating persistent subsonic signals, adaptive environmental characteristics, and structural anomalies consistent with both natural and engineered features. Artifacts recovered over the years confirmed human presence, but did not provide conclusive evidence of the 11 friends' current status. The ridge, it seemed, was a living puzzle, one that resisted explanation. Concealment, or retrieval. Detective Cross summarized the enduring question in his report. The ridge is not simply a location. It is a system. It interacts, responds, and preserves. Whether it holds the students or merely their echoes, it remains beyond our full comprehension. The hum continues. The chambers exist, and the 11 remain a part of something far larger than anyone imagined. As researchers withdrew, the ridge fell silent once more. Yet the hum persisted faintly, almost imperceptibly. A reminder that Cherokee Ridge was not finished with its story. The case remained unresolved, the evidence intact, and the question unanswerable. What truly lies beneath, and what, if anything, remains of those 11 friends? By late 2025, Cherokee Ridge had become a focal point for both scientific inquiry and public fascination. What started as a missing persons investigation decades earlier had evolved into a multi-layered enigma, combining geology, acoustics, human behavior, and potential historical engineering. The ridge's anomalies had resisted all conventional investigation methods, and each discovery only deepened the mystery surrounding the 11 vanished friends. New sensores deployed by a private research consortium revealed patterns in subsonic pulses that had previously gone undetected. Unlike past readings, which fluctuated unpredictably, these signals demonstrated coherence and periodic repetition, almost like an attempt at communication. Acoustic engineers describe the pulses as having structured energy characteristics, suggesting a system capable of maintaining environmental resonance over decades. Detectives and analysts speculated that the ridge itself could function as a recording and adaptive mechanism, preserving evidence of past events in ways modern science struggled to explain. Ground-penetrating radar scans uncovered additional chambers, previously inaccessible due to debris and sediment shifts. These tunnels were arranged in geometric patterns inconsistent with natural cave formation, indicating deliberate design. Within the largest chamber, thermographic imaging captured faint heat signatures, interpreted as either residual energy from previous human presence or ongoing environmental interaction. While no biological matter was detected, the presence of energy suggested continuity. The ridge was, in some sense, alive. Investigators revisited recovered artifacts, including fragments of clothing, notebooks, and personal devices, to cross-reference environmental anomalies. Each item's location corresponded with seismic and thermal irregularities. Analysts concluded that the ridge maintained its own internal logic, preserving evidence in locations that conventional exploration could not easily reach. These findings provided indirect confirmation that the 11 friends had been within the system long enough to leave lasting traces. Behavioral experts analyzed the camcorder footage and reconstructed sequences from eyewitness accounts. The students' responses indicated heightened situational awareness, yet they were clearly disoriented by the ridge's adaptive characteristics, sudden shadow shifts, unexplained sounds, and moving water patterns. Decision, each movement recorded on tape, matched later environmental data, suggesting the ridge influenced human behavior in ways both subtle and profound. Electromagnetic studies showed spikes, concentrated near a central chamber beneath Ridge Sector D, correlating with previous subsonic pulse readings. Energy readings exhibited quasi-periodic patterns and interacted unpredictably with all nearby electronic equipment. Drones, cameras, and communication devices repeatedly failed within the zone, reinforcing the theory that the ridge could manipulate electromagnetic fields, effectively creating a localized technological blackout. A breakthrough in understanding came when geologists and acoustic engineers modeled the ridge's structure using historical seismic and LiDAR data. They identified a network of chambers and shafts capable of amplifying subsonic signals, creating reverberations detectable over long distances. The model suggested that external interference storms, construction, or human activity could trigger spikes in activity, potentially explaining past anomalies such as the 1998 storm, Mason's observations, and the 2019 camcorder recovery. Families of the missing students remained engaged, attending briefings and reviewing partial data releases, while the physical remains were never recovered. The corroboration of artifacts, environmental anomalies, and verified frequency readings offered the first tangible proof that the ridge itself had preserved evidence of the 11 friends. For the families, this provided a complex blend of solace and frustration. The ridge held a record, but it refused to return their loved ones. Detective Cross, reflecting on decades of investigation, emphasized the interdisciplinary nature of the challenge. Cherokee Ridge defies standard categorization. It is geological, acoustic, and psychological. It preserves, influences, and communicates in ways we are only beginning to measure. Whatever claimed those 11, it continues to exist here, waiting for discovery or understanding beyond our current capability. In conclusion, Chapter 8 revealed a ridge that was no longer merely a site of disappearance, but a sophisticated system. Environmental, technological, and perhaps semi-intelligent, capable of interacting with humans, preserving evidence, and resisting traditional investigative methods. The 11 Friends' disappearance had become inseparable from the ridge itself, cementing Cherokee Ridge as one of the most perplexing cold cases in modern history. A puzzle of human, natural, and possibly engineered forces, still unresolved, and still echoing its enigmatic hum across Tennessee. By 2026, Cherokee Ridge had evolved from a missing persons case into a phenomenon studied by multiple disciplines, from physics to psychology. Operation Ridge Echo had transitioned into a permanent monitoring project, combining acoustic sensors, seismic arrays, and electromagnetic detectors, each feeding continuous data to a central research hub. The ridge itself had become the subject, its anomalies mapped, quantified, and yet still defying full comprehension. New analysis of the 1998 Hyatt camcorder footage revealed subtle details previously overlooked. Shadows moved independently of light sources, and minor shifts in the lantern glow suggested reflective surfaces or energy sources that were never physically present. Behavioral analysis of the 11 Friends indicated they were responding rationally, what was effectively a dynamically changing environment. Each decision, each movement seemed to anticipate or react to stimuli that investigators could only partially detect. Advanced seismic monitoring detected irregular tremors localized to Ridge Sector D. These vibrations were consistent with structural modifications to underground chambers, possibly artificial. Researchers hypothesized that the ridge had internal mechanisms capable of responding to external stimuli, storms, footsteps, or even sound waves. The patterns matched those found in Mason's declassified scheme, suggesting an engineered or semi-intelligent system influencing environmental variables. Thermal imaging continued to reveal faint, unexplained heat signatures within inaccessible cavities. While no biological matter was recovered, the persistence of energy readings suggested the presence of either residual organic traces or environmental activity maintaining a form of continuity. Analysts speculated this could explain why traditional search efforts had repeatedly failed. The ridge's internal dynamics masked or preserved the evidence beyond conventional reach. Investigators revisited recovered artifacts, including fragments of clothing, notebooks, and personal devices, to correlate with environmental anomalies. Each item's location aligned with seismic, thermal, and electromagnetic. Forensic analysis confirmed they belonged to the 11 Friends. Their placement suggested deliberate preservation or containment within specific chambers. This finding reinforced the theory that Cherokee Ridge acted as a self-maintaining system, retaining both traces of human activity and evidence of environmental anomalies. Acoustic engineers focused on the persistent low-frequency hum, now measured continuously over decades. It demonstrated a structured pattern with multiple harmonics, appearing to interact with electromagnetic fields. Observers noted that personnel within proximity often experienced vertigo and subtle auditory hallucinations. Psychologists theorized this could influence behavior, explaining some of the students' responses captured on tape, yet the interaction remained only partially understood. Further breakthroughs came from mapping the ridge's subterranean topology with LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar. Previously unknown chambers were identified, forming a network of concentric tunnels and vertical shafts. The largest chambers contained metal reinforcements, consistent with historical engineering. These structures amplified acoustic energy, creating reverberations detectable across long distances and possibly contributing to the ridge's anomalous behavior. Family engagement continued, as researchers provided controlled briefings, revealing artifacts, partial video reconstructions, and thermal mapping. While the students' physical remains were never recovered, the evidence confirmed that the 11 had interacted with and were preserved within the ridge in some form. This duality of confirmation and ambiguity left families with both solace and continued uncertainty. Detective Cross reflected on the ongoing investigation. Cherokee Ridge is not simply a location. It is a system that observes, reacts, and preserves. The 11 remain a part of it, whether through physical traces or energy patterns. Every breakthrough raises new questions, and every anomaly challenges our understanding of environment and perception. By the end of Chapter 9, it was evident that Cherokee Ridge had become more than a cold case. It was a living, evolving system, geological, engineered, and possibly semi-intelligent, interacting with humans, preserving evidence, and resisting conventional methods of recovery. The 11 Friends' disappearance had merged with the ridge itself, leaving a legacy of mystery, unanswered questions, and a persistent hum echoing across Tennessee, ensuring the story would continue to captivate, challenge, and haunt investigators for generations. By mid-2026, Cherokee Ridge had transformed into an enigmatic laboratory of natural, engineered, and possibly anomalous forces. Operation Ridge Echo had evolved into a permanent multidisciplinary initiative. Teams of geologists, acoustic engineers, psychologists, and intelligence analysts were stationed around the ridge, monitoring every seismic tremor, electromagnetic spike, and subsonic pulse in real time. The ridge was no longer simply a site of disappearance. It was an active, reactive system. Analysis of historical and newly recovered footage revealed patterns invisible to earlier investigators. Shadows moved against physics. Lantern reflections shifted without light sources, and water flow in the tunnels behaved unpredictably. Behavioral reconstruction of the 11 Friends suggested they responded rationally to environmental stimuli that defied standard explanation. Decision whether to explore a shaft, block a passage, or document findings appeared influenced by adaptive features of the ridge itself. Seismic data confirmed localized tremors within the central chambers. The patterns aligned with Mason's declassified suggesting the ridge had been intentionally modified to amplify or manipulate energy. Acoustic engineers noted that low-frequency hums now exhibited precise harmonic structures. These pulses interacted with electromagnetic fields, creating phenomena that could influence perception, orientation, and physiological responses. The ridge was essentially a dynamic, interactive environment, one that preserved evidence while resisting human intrusion. Thermal imaging of previously inaccessible tunnels showed consistent energy signatures, while biological matter was absent. Residual heat suggested a mechanism of continuity, whether environmental or artificially maintained. These findings explained why search efforts over decades yielded no remains, while confirming the ridge retained the presence of the 11 Friends in some measurable form. Artifacts, recovered from sediment and debris, corroborated video analysis and environmental readings, further emphasizing the ridge's self-contained nature. Behavioral experts highlighted the students' strategic responses to stressors. They documented airflow, noted structural shifts, and reacted to shadows and sounds. These observations, combined with environmental data, suggested the ridge was influencing cognition and movement in a subtle but measurable way. The interplay between human action and environmental feedback became a central focus of the investigation. Ground-penetrating radar and LIDAR scans revealed previously unknown chambers, concentric tunnel networks, and vertical shafts reinforced with metal, confirming historical engineering modifications. The chambers amplified acoustic energy and resonated subsonic pulses detectable over long distances. These structural insights explained the persistence of the hum across decades and suggested the ridge could preserve signals, artifacts, and even human behavioral traces. Families of the missing students received controlled briefings, including video reconstructions, thermal mapping, and artifact analysis. While physical remains were never recovered, the evidence confirmed human interaction within the ridge and its continued capacity to maintain environmental and energetic traces. The findings provided partial closure but also emphasized the continued mystery. Detective Cross summarized, Cherokee Ridge is not merely a location. It is a system, geological, engineered, and reactive. It observes, influences, and preserves. The 11 remain a part of it, whether physically or through residual energy. Every discovery uncovers new questions, and the ridge continues to resist complete understanding. By the conclusion of Chapter 10, it was evident that Cherokee Ridge had become a complex system interacting with humans, preserving evidence, and defying conventional recovery methods. The 11 Friends' disappearance was inseparable from the ridge itself, a dynamic, mysterious entity that persisted across decades, leaving investigators with lingering questions, technological challenges, and an enduring, unsettling hum echoing silently through Tennessee.